Okay, good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know, I'm Kenneth Campbell. I'm the chairman of the Energy Efficiency Association, and we're here today to look at the LADS scheme, the Local Authority Delivery Scheme. The scheme varies quite considerably around the country, from various region to region, with different local authorities implementing it in a slightly different way. So today we're going to be looking at the implementation for the local authorities in the southwest of the country, and how installers can get involved. So today we have John Rathenbury and Kate Watson from the West of England Combined Authority and the Southwest Energy Hub, and they're going to give an overview of what's happening in the southwest and how you can get involved. And then we have Danny Putney from NIC EIC, who's going to say a few words about PAS 2030 and the transitions for the end of next month to get to the new PAS 2035 standard, which you will need for the LADS Phase 2 scheme. We also have today a special announcement because there's been an announcement from BEIS this morning. So I'm going to do a Hugh Edwards and pass over to my colleague Gary Braybrook and just ask him to say a few words about what was announced this morning from BEIS.
Right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all again. Some of you may be aware, but we had a Teams call with BEIS in relation to PAS 2017 and regards LAB 1A, 1B and the Green Homes Grant Scheme. And that is obviously, as you are aware, the situation was that everything had to be installed by August the 1st, well, July the 1st, sorry, because it's all switching over to the new PAS. That has now changed. PAS 2017 will now be allowed to be used for, I believe, LAD 1A and LAD 1B, and also the Green Homes Voucher Scheme. And it's an absolute to October the 31st. So I've noticed that there's been a heck of a lot of windows and door vouchers going out recently, and also that, you know, there's a lot of people that were totally unaware and have been trying to actually get everything done, but have struggled because they've not been able to get equipment, they've not been able to get the stuff delivered to them, and therefore it was impossible to get the installs done by the end of June. So the announcement has been made this morning that you can continue that until October the 31st on PAS 2017 on the Green Homes Voucher Scheme and the first two LADs. On LAD 2, however, this does not apply, but I'm sure the other guys on the call will tell you about that. So I know there's been something, Ken's put something on LinkedIn about it, but that has now been announced. So I suppose that's a good news for some of the installers that haven't been able to move across as yet. If you need to know anything further about that, give me a call after the call and we can discuss it. But I'm going to be quiet now and I'll speak to you all at the end of the call. Thank you.
So that's just a recap, because I noticed in the chat that is just for the Green Home Grant vouchers that have been applied for under PAS 2017, and the LADs 1 and 2 that have been, 1A and 1B that have been applied for under the scheme. It doesn't apply to Eco 3, it doesn't apply to LADs 2, it doesn't apply to any of the other schemes. This is specifically for the people that have got vouchers that were quoted under PAS 2030, 2017, and it's to stop them getting bills for increased costs of retrofit coordinators. So, and to allow installers extra time. So that's just to clarify the question that's there. So if you started work on jobs under PAS 2017, you have until October to get them all done. So thank you. Now we will carry on and get back to the main topic of this conversation. And I'll ask John Rattenbury from the Southwest Energy Hub to say a few words about the LAD scheme in the Southwest. So thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Just wait. So yeah, I'm going to do a quick intro to the Energy Hub and delve a bit more into the actual detail of our scheme in the Southwest. So I'm John Rattenbury. I manage the Energy Hub across the wider Southwest region. And we're obviously here to talk about our kind of scheme delivery under phase 2. Next slide. So for those of you that aren't familiar, we are effectively funded by BEIS, and we are a partnership of 7 local enterprise partnerships across the wider Southwest. So we cover from Cornwall up to Gloucestershire and then out to Solent. So those sort of 7 LEP areas. Next slide, Kate. So we kind of play an interesting role. We're kind of in between working with kind of local government and public sector kind of in the region, working with kind of private and third sector organisations, so community groups and others, and then also kind of interfacing with BEIS. So we flow information both ways, and we support delivery at all those levels. What we've been set up for is to identify and develop energy projects across our hub region. And we've got kind of 6 core objectives to help us kind of do that. So one is to increase the number, quality and scale of energy projects being delivered. Then also provide regional leadership, raise awareness about local energy investment opportunities and benefits, and kind of play that role liaising with BEIS on that. Enable areas to attract private and public finance for energy projects, and identify opportunities for income, and then also support and deliver national and local government schemes, and the LAD is an example of that. And then we also kind of play a role in kind of collaborating and coordinating and sharing of best practice. So our kind of work spans all kind of renewable energy technologies, and also kind of grid issues, and EV charging, for example. Next slide, please, Kate. We've got kind of 5 core services and programs that we deliver that are all funded by BEIS. So our local capacity support program is where we provide our team support to local authorities in the public sector to kind of bring forward energy projects ranging from renewable electricity, renewable heat, kind of district heating, combined heat and power, grid, EV, energy efficiency. So quite a range there. We also have a Rural Community Energy Fund program where we provide grants to community groups to develop renewable energy projects, and often they include energy efficiency in those projects. We've got the Green Homes Grant Local Authority Delivery, which we're talking about today. We've also been running a social housing technical pilot where we've been working with 5 social landlords to understand their stock and develop improvement plans to put them in a position where they're then able to bid for the future social housing decarbonisation fund that's been announced, the first kind of wave of that due this sort of summer, and then that's a fund that's going to be available up to 2030. And then we've also taken on this role for public sector decarbonisation skills, so supporting the wider public sector to develop net zero organisational plans for their assets, and then secure funding to improve the energy efficiency of those assets, and also kind of reduce the carbon from heat sources. Next slide. Great, so that's just a brief overview of the Energy Hub, and now the kind of core stuff that everyone's here for. Kate's going to talk through in a bit more detail the details of our scheme. Over to you, Kate.
Thanks, John. So I'm I suspect most of you know some of this already, but there's been half a billion pounds out of the original 2 billion that was announced last summer, allocated to local authority schemes. Phase 1, as we now know as Phase 1 and Phase 1AB and 1A, was 200 million through local authorities, and then Phase 2 is the remaining 300 million, which has been delivered through the energy hubs. And I think one of the key things here is that all the energy hubs have probably taken a slightly different approach. So if you are calling in from another area and have been to another one of these, it might be different because we are able to take our own approach here. I think, like the other 2 programs, we have really challenging timescales as well. So we need to deliver by the end of this calendar year. Although, should there be works committed and started, not just committed, we can go over into early January if that's required. So very similar, I think, to LADS 1A and B, but obviously some minor changes. So the scheme is tenure neutral, which means we can do work on social, private rented and owner-occupier properties, as long as those properties fall within EPC bands in the whole G to E. But we are also able to do 50% across our whole region at an EPC D, which is good because there's quite a lot of properties that fall into a very low D that we could actually do some work on. It will be for our delivery partners to manage that, but sort of on the whole, we're looking for an even split across local authorities just to make it a bit easier. So we have just over £50 million to spend in that time period. And the measures that are included is pretty much most insulation measures. We're not going to be doing room and roof. I'm going to leave that to the eco side of things, since there aren't really any standards on that at the moment. But windows and doors, solar technologies, heat pumps, and we've also got some minor works that we would like to see done alongside more substantial works if they need doing. So obviously that's things like a jacket to an immersion heater, or some draft proofing and LED lights, but we're not going to pay just for those small items because there's a delivery charge attached to it. Probably the same as previous ones, there are no fossil fuel technologies here. We are able to do modern, good performance electric heating as well, so high heat retention storage heaters are included, but no other fossil fuel technologies. As already alluded to, the delivery has to be under PAS 2035. So PAS 2030-2019 for all fabric and service measures, and MCS accreditations for the other renewable technologies. Again, this is focused at low income households. So that's an average household income of £30,000 or less. Obviously, some of the eco and EcoFlex criteria make that easier to identify, but generally that's what we're looking at. And we have £10,000 per owner occupier. They are not allowed to subsidise any of the installation themselves. So it needs to be fully funded. Now, this is an average grant of £10,000. So if we get a number of installations that are, between £5,000 and £10,000, and there's some surplus, and then we get a house where it's actually going to cost £14,000 to do the installation, if there is money from underspend on other jobs, we can put it to overspend on a particular house. But on the whole, it can't go above £10,000 per property. And then on landlord properties, it's a maximum of £5,000 grant with a minimum of a third from a landlord contribution. And our target is SAP based, so we are hoping to move Properties up a band at least, and preferably, and particularly where it's a band D, currently move them up to a band E, band C, sorry, don't want to go down. So we did some questioning of our local authorities in our patch last summer, and we interviewed 30 local authorities, and 75% pretty much came back with answers for us, and we did a little bit earlier on this year as well, of those that weren't able to come back last year. And yeah, most of them are delivering something within their patch, and they have some involvement through sending on referrals or to very substantial in-house schemes of their own. So there's a really wide range of capacity in the local authorities in our patch. And as it says here, 75% of those contract or appoint others to deliver services for them. And a lot of that is to manage risk and exposure to the local authorities. And a lot of that comes down to previous experience with the likes of the Green Deal communities in particular. There are also capacity issues within local authorities. I'm sure you're all aware that funding has been cut over the last 5 years or so, probably longer, 7 years. And that makes it really difficult to take on staff. And obviously in the last 18 months-ish, we've had COVID to deal with. So there's been extra costs for local authorities. So there are issues there. And a lot of these organisations either will appoint a monitoring organisation or an intermediary to do those sort of checking on quality of installations. So using this feedback, we went away and we did a bit of analysis on what models that we could take forward and discuss them with our senior management team, and that's how we developed the programme that we're taking forward. And so hopefully I can take you through some of the detail in the next few slides. So how did we apportion our funding across the 7 LEP areas? So we took an average of £10,000 per property, which gave us that rough figure of about 4,500 properties that need to be have some measures done on them, up to £10,000 in this grant funding period, and then divided that by the number of local authorities, and we get approximately just over 100 homes per local authority and approximately £1 million per local authority. But it's not really that simple, because poorly performing homes aren't clustered nicely across, you know, a nice even spread across different local authority areas. And likewise, low income households aren't evenly spread across local authority income households. So did a lot of work in the background, having a look at where we've got multiples, indices of multiple deprivation. You know, the Southwest is nowhere near as bad as many parts of the country, but there are some quite severe pockets of deprivation in certain areas. You know, you can see around Plymouth, Torbay area on the south coast, Bristol, and parts of Cornwall in this picture. We then had a look at EPC data. So I think this one represents E, F, and G rated properties. I'm not really sure what the insert is. That might be D rated properties. You know, they're pretty evenly spread. I guess where there's less, it's probably more rural anyway. But it gives us an indication of what sort of market is out there. And then we did some heat mapping of localized areas, sort of looking at what the potential was to you know, really focus in on some areas. And as you can see from this heat mapping, there's some real potentials in certain areas for cavity wall, but solid wall, and various other measures. And we then broke that down further into looking at what we've got in terms of houses across the region by the different LEP areas. As you can see, the detached houses, lots of those, quite a lot more than anywhere else in part of the Southwest, as is semi-detached houses, fairly evenly spread across some other areas, as you might expect. So all of this data helped us develop how we're going to pull things together. And here's an example of one of them, just with some high-level measures that we might look at. Potential households based on EPC data, and I know that's always a shot in time, so it's not 100% accurate. And then we looked at how that might pan out for the number of properties that also qualify under the low income threshold. So we did this for each of the local authority, the LEP areas. And once we've done that, we were able to apportion funding based on the quantity of properties in different areas. So it's not an even split of £1 million per area. So we went out to the market in March. The approach that we'd taken was that we wanted to procure a delivery partner for each of the LEP areas. And the delivery partner for us would be responsible for the end-to-end journey. So all the marketing and engagement, taking the customer through eligibility criteria and qualification, doing an assessment, having a retrofit coordinator, discussing the proposals, doing the installation, payments, and then outside of that, we are going to appoint some independent auditors to just check on the quality of installations, assessments, and to make sure that our householders are actually qualifying under that low income approach. So gone through a lot of this already. So as I said, we went out to the market in March, and we have received responses, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So our tender was broken down 40% quality, 40% price, and then 5% on social value and equality and diversity. We think it's really important to make sure that, you know, the quality aspect here is important. It's one of our reporting KPIs with BEIS, so it's an important aspect for the work that we do. And we also, the quality questions really delved into the delivery partner's experience and doing similar project management, all the sort of things that you would expect a delivery partner to be able to do to get going quickly. And I can give you an update on our procurement. We have identified a number of, preferred bidders for 3 of our LEP areas, which are Heart of the Southwest, West of England and Gloucestershire. So if there are people on the call that want to, based in those areas, we probably a bit further ahead with that work, you'll be pleased. We are in standstill, so I can't announce who those people are. We should be through, to be on the safe side, I think after the bank holiday, we will be able to announce who we have appointed to those particular lots. But that does mean that we weren't able to successfully appoint people to 4 of our lots, which is really disappointing. And we're currently working through some options around what we can do and whether we go back out to the market for a new procurement exercise. Obviously, time is of the essence, and this isn't an ideal circumstance for us, but this may be what we end up doing in order to make sure we get a quality response and be able to take things forward. And I think that is the end of my presentation. So hopefully you've found that helpful. Ooh, stop.
Thank you very much, Kate. That I think was enlightening. Now, if I ask Danny Putney to say a few words from NICIC about the PAS.
Thank you very much. So I'm here from NICEIC. NICEIC are a scheme provider for PAS 2030. And as Kate mentioned, you need to be compliant with PAS 2030 in order to join the supply chain for a number of the technologies under the scheme. I'm going to start just with a little bit of history on NIC EIC. We've been around since 1956. We're one of the largest certification bodies for installer networks in the UK, operating both the MCS scheme, which was mentioned for the low carbon heat technologies, but also for PAS 2030. And we work as part of an industry alliance with the Electrical Contractors Association and Electrical Safety First, which is a charity which feeds back into development of the electrical industry. The standards in which we're able to offer assistance within is PAS 2030. We've heard that talked about quite a few bits today. And it's the specification for installation measures, energy efficiency measures within dwellings, but also looks at installation in park homes. And that was mentioned again as one of the larger scale type of projects that can happen when a whole estate of park homes is done. We work in accordance with PAS 2031. It's the certification body standard. So that sets out to us what we need to have a look at when we take an application from an organisation, and surveillance requirements that there are for members of schemes. And then also there's PAS 2035. PAS 2035 comes into effect with the 2019 version of PAS 2030 and lays out within it an assessment and design requirements for projects that are happening within retrofit installations. As we heard Kenneth say first thing, PAS 2030-2017 has been extended to the end of October this year, but it's only applicable for Green Home Grant vouchers that have already been issued or for the LAD Phase 1. For any other work, so doing any work under ECO, it needs to be 2019. Any work through the Phase 2 or development going forward will be through the 2019 standard. So the 2019 standards, as you imagine, was published in 2019, but there's been a little bit going on in the UK since then. So its implementation was deferred from its original timetable, and is currently down as mandatory for new installations to the end of June, and that's in the foreword of the standard. As I understood it from BEIS yesterday, they're looking to actually get BSI to rewrite that so that it will say with the exceptions that they're now allowing. And PAS 2035, also published in 2019, is applicable for all PAS 2030-2019 installations. It must be applied when claiming compliance with that standard. So just a bit about what PAS 2030 actually is. It's an installation standard, and it lays out certain things that have to be done. For an installer who's registered on a PAS 2030 scheme, they must do certain things. So they must confirm that the retrofit assessment and design for an individual property for an installation is correct. So they would look at it in accordance with their own skill set, against building regulations. They need to do a pre-installation building survey. So that's making sure that the property that is having the measure doesn't have any underlying issues, and it would look to identify any potential structural or thermal bridging, installation barriers. Might be that the existing heating system needs to be updated in addition with a new low carbon heating system. They need to have a look that there is a location specific method statement. There is nothing generic in a PAS 2030 installation. You can't have a method statement that covers all. It is the installation you are doing at one LAD road that needs to have that design that's made for it, and the method statement that says how the installation is going to go through. And that's shared with the consumer, because it's about bringing the consumer onto the journey and letting them know how the measures that you're installing in their home are going to work for them. It gives you the installation requirements, and that'll be anything from the competence of the people who are undertaking the work, ratio of competent against labour force, the product and design of that product, manufacturer's guidance that you'll be using, and the dates in which you'll start and finish. At the end of an installation, there's a requirement for a claim of compliance. So when you finish the job, you give it to the consumer, and that lets them know the quality of the work that's been undertaken. And with that, there is also a guarantee which provides, dependent on the measure, an assurance that during a certain period of time, they'll be able to make sure that that work is covered by a guarantee. Within PAS 2030, there are several annexes, and they break down by measure technology, and it will give you specifics for that. So, for example, there's a cavity wall annex, and that will tell you exactly what's required for the competence of a cavity wall installer, what the ratio is for that, what the percentage of on-site monitoring and validation needs to be done, what the handover documents are for that specific measure. And there's one of those for everything that's covered within the standard. As I said, it gives you the competency requirements. So it will tell you the level 1, level 2, level 3 requirements that there are for each technology within PAS 2030, and the documentation that you leave with the homeowner. So is it the manufacturer's guidance? Is it just the warranty? Is it the claim of conformity? Is it the annex specific within PAS 2030 will let the installer know what to provide the consumer with as they finish an installation. As I said earlier on, the certification bodies work to PAS 2031, and within that, it tells us about percentages of assessment. So an organisation certified with an organisation like NIC for PAS 2030 is subject to percentage surveillance, and those vary dependent on the measures that you're registered for. So someone registered for the majority of insulation measures comes under tier 1. And those mean a minimum of 5%, but up to 10% of all installations will be visited by the certification body. Other measures that are considered to be lower risk could have up to 1% surveillance. And it all depends on what it's set in PAS 2030. Within that, there is also other considerations that put you on risk paths. Has there been a complaint against the work that you had done? Was there a non-conformity against building regulations or the standard itself identified on site? Have you changed your technical personnel? Any of these changes could put you on a higher percentage of surveillance. Trustmark is also something that's required for all of the schemes. So once you're registered with a scheme provider like NIC, EIC, we will register you on Trustmark for the measures. And when you do an installation under the Green Home Voucher Scheme or LAD or ECO, you notify the work to Trustmark and upload certain documents that you've completed. They will include the claim of compliance and the warranty for the installation, but quite often the method statement and the pre-installation building survey as well. And those documents are kept within that portal and can be accessed by the persons governing the scheme, be it Ofgem in the case of ECO or BEIS in the case of the LAD scheme or Green Home Voucher schemes. It's quite simple to join. Provided you're an organisation who is involved in that type of work, you make an application. We will send someone out to assess you. That person will be competent in the technology themselves, and they will do a mixture of on-site inspection of a completed installation you've done and verbal questioning. Why have you undertaken a certain task? What will you expect? What would you have done in this situation? How is this location specific? At the end of that assessment, provided it's successful, you'll be certified and a Trustmark application will go through. And that's the point then that ongoing surveillance will commence. So each time you do an installation, it will be registered against your business. And when that percentage comes up, we'll start coming out to double check that everything's as it should be. So that's me. I understand we're leaving questions till the end. So if you've got any questions, just let me know when we get there.
Thank you very much, Danny. We are going to turn to questions now. If anyone has any questions, because we can't see you all, if you want to put them into the chat session, we will try and get through as many questions as possible that are listed in the chat. If you are on camera and on screen, if you wave frantically at the screen, Gary's going to keep his eye out, and hopefully we will be able to spot you and bring you in. Or you can, if you have the app, you can press, there's a little button to raise a hand, and we'll come to you that way. So we will try and get through as many questions as possible. And first off, we have a question for Kate, and it's from Simon Hale, and he's saying, who are the delivery partners for the Southwest? Obviously you can't say, but can you give any indication on what type of businesses they are, or who the ones that are in place are, and when they will be announced?
People that might operate in the sector as delivery partners. And you know, we'll be able to announce after the bank holiday. I think, you know, we've got I think it would be fair to wait until after the bank holiday to go through that standstill. We've got a couple of days grace, but it would be better to have a chat with our new delivery partners, and then I'm sure they'll want to announce where they've been successful.
Okay. Then we come to a question from Dean Owen. Can installers operate under both PAS, so PAS 2017 for Ladden Green Home Grant Voucher work, while installing ECO under PAS 2019 and PAS 2035? I think that's one for you, Danny.
Yeah, yes, you can. The way that UCAS and BEIS have allowed the standards to be is if you've achieved the 2019 standard, you're seen as having met 2017 and upgraded to 2019. So you'll have both certifications in place. And the Trustmark lodgement data will allow you to lodge against 2017 and 2019 as well.
Thank you.
That's very helpful and a great relief. Thank you very much, Danny.
Thank you. Then I have a question from Kate Callendon, who's asking, Kate and John, will the hub be looking for LAD delivery to be blended with ECO to make the funds go as far as possible?
Oh yes, sorry, I should have picked that up in my presentation. So the funds can be blended in the sense that they can be used on the same house. They can't be used on the same measure. So for example, you could do loft and cavity wall under ECO and then do, I don't know, a heat pump under the LAD scheme. And I should say also, if there is underspend on a LAD 1A or 1B project on a particular house, these can be picked up under LAD 2 to the maximum of that grant value. So if there's already been 3,000 spent under LAD 1A, and then it's identified that that customer can have something else, you can only spend 7,000 on that property because the maximum is 10. Does that make sense? So there's not actually any blending of different funding as such. If there was anything that was would receive RHI payments, you know, because you're funding, there's a grant attached to it, that would have to be taken out of any RHI payments that the customer would receive.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to come back with a follow-up, Kate, or if you're happy with that. I know that Kate's on a train at the moment, and she's saying, no, perfect, thanks, no mic, so that's fine. Thank you very much. Next question we have is Darren Hutton is asking, can we install PV as well as thermal?
Yes, with the proviso that it is a fabric first based approach, because that's what the PAS 2035 is. So clearly in our procurement documents, it states that if there are fabric measures that need to be done, they should be done before a renewable installation is installed, if it's feasible and it's a bit, it can be done under the funding. So if the fabric measure was external wall installation and it was going to cost £27,000 to do it, but we could put solar PV on because all the other fabric measures have been dealt with, then yes, in that instance, we'd probably say, yes, go ahead and do it. But we're not starting off with under insulated homes and then doing renewables straight away.
Thank you. Darren, do you wish to ask a follow-up? No, he's writing. I think he's just written in the chat that it's fine. So, thank you, Darren. Next, we have a question from, well, LMF is asking Danny if she can look into an issue, but I'm hoping that Danny has seen that. Then Curb tender. The tender required a minimum turnover of around 8 million, which means only companies like EDF and E.ON would be able to actually bid. Given the news that you only filled 4 areas, will the turnover requirement be lowered?
So shall I pick that one up? So I think the 80 million figure is not quite accurate. There may have been, some misunderstanding of where that's come from. But we are looking at a number of options for what we do for those 4 areas, and that will be something we look at, but we haven't selected our approach just yet. What we are planning to do, I should say, is that ahead of determining what we are going to do, we're going to do a market exercise where we're going to come out to the market and just kind of gather some feedback and gather some input to what would work for the market in terms of kind of delivering in those 4 areas, and also testing some of the changes we might make to a future procurement if we did that. So it would be good to be able to kind of maybe share that through the association and get that feedback.
Thank you, John. We're happy to help if we can. Curb, does someone from Curb want to respond?
No, that's obviously if that's going to be looked at, that's great. So we'll look out for that in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we're getting through these questions fairly quickly, I think. Dean Owens asking, are there particular specifications for insulation measures such as IWI, EWI?
So the simple answer to that is it needs to be compliant with the PAS. The longer answer to that is because the PAS requires a retrofit coordinator to be involved with the risk analysis, then it rather depends on the particular property in question as to what would be the most appropriate insulation material to be used, whether that's a vapor open or a vapor closed material. So that's the slightly longer one, and it really does come down to a house by house analysis of what would be suitable.
Well, thank you very much, Kate. That answers my question.
Thank you, Dean.
I'd add into that as well that the consideration for the building regulations is key at all times when installation measures. So we're looking at U value and property loss calculations to be specific for every single measure and every single product that's used.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Dean. Next, I have a question from Gary, who's asking, who will be the independent auditors that you mentioned?
We haven't appointed them yet. We
Okay.
haven't procured them yet. So I don't know is the simple answer to that one.
But we are going to be running an open procurement for that. So again, we can share with the association when that procurement's live, and you can help us publicise that. That'd be great.
Okay, Gary, thank you. You want to say something, Gary?
Yeah, it was only briefly. Will this be for technical monitoring or for actual auditing?
Well, it's a combination. So it's primarily for technical monitoring, but it will extend to having a review of a number of assessments against the specification. So in a previous life, I worked in a place where I had to check that, and I quite often got EWI quotes that didn't account for having windows and doors in them, and I had to send them back because they were overpriced. So that sort of thing. And also checking retrofit coordinators proposals, because as you all know, you can have an internal retrofit coordinator, but the advice should be independent. So if I see a retrofit coordinator that works for a glazing company that is only recommending glazing and doors, then that's probably not following the PAS to the letter of what's recommended, and then we'll be having conversations about that. And the other side of things is to look at, just do a small selection of checking customer eligibility on the income side of things, because all of these are areas where BEIS has put a lot of concern around previous experiences of fraudulent activity, and that is part of our requirement to them. So that's why it's a bit wider than just the technical monitoring that you get on ECO.
Right, okay. So following on from that, if your delivery partners, I mean, I think there was 4 regions that you've already done, and then maybe you'll get the others done later. If those delivery partners already work with their own sort of TM people, will that be taken into consideration, or will it have to be an independent scenario?
It will have to be an independent scenario. So I do appreciate that this might mean that, like, some people get their work checked 4 times or more for a particular job. I know that's a real challenge in the industry, but we have to have some independence on our auditors. And it might be that it ends up being the same auditors that a particular delivery partner has got on board already, or even some of the installers have on board. But until we've gone through that process, we won't know who that is.
Right, okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying about internal retrofit coordinators. Self-interest is a great motivator. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Next, there's a question from Stephen Thomas. On your graphic, Kate, were the new build properties included in that map?
I'm going to let John confirm this, because I think he was more closely involved with this data than I was.
So that's any property that's got an EPC of the EPC register on the map.
Okay. Thank you. Stephen, do you wish to add a follow-up? No, not hearing you, Stephen. Oh no, message in the text. That's fine. Thank you. So we can move on to the next question from Steve Gunnell. Is spray foam insulation included as a measure for pitched roofs? This is one that comes up in every one of these lab meetings.
If it's compliant under the PAS, then yes. If you ask me, I personally say no, because it's a nightmare to get off if you need to replace the roof, and then you've got thermal bridging issues and various other things. But that's down to the delivery organisation and the retrofit coordinator to decide.
Okay, thank you. Do you wish to come back, Steve?
No, that's fine. And I would agree with you. If it's not delivered correctly or installed correctly, there's an issue. But if you follow the PAS 2035, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Right, we have a question from Mark Dallin at EDF. Given the delays in allocating areas in the southwest, it makes the timelines tight for delivery. Is it likely LAD 2 funding will extend past December?
So I think at the moment we're working to December. We've had no noises from BEIS that there'd be an extension to that. So we unfortunately can't say anything at the moment beyond December because we don't know. We're working to that deadline.
Mark, do you wish to say anything?
I thought that might be the answer. So that I think, am I correct in saying phase 1A was extended by 3 months until June?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, and you know, I'm sure I can be shot down here, but it could be extended another 3 months to March, end of March next year, to allow more time for delivery, and that would then mean it would line up then and end at the same time as Eco 3, which makes more sense.
That's a very good idea. We've not had those conversations with BEIS. Unfortunately, there's nothing more that I can say apart from what I just said. As far as we're still working to, December.
Something to be considered, I think, though.
I think the other thing to bring along with that is that our procurement has an extension possibility attached to it. So, I mean, it's obviously subject to whatever funding might be possible to deliver future schemes, but we are aware there may be a LAD 3 and a home upgrade scheme. So depending on the parameters, it's possible that any procurement that we've got might be able to be taken forward with future delivery, depending on what BEIS announce and what we can deliver through our programs.
Thank you, Kate. Mark looks, I was going to say happy enough with that, but I think he's content enough with that is probably a better expression. Dean Owens asking, are there particular specifications for insulation measures such as IWI and EWI?
No, there aren't particular because again, we're procuring a delivery partner. If I gave you a specification, I am now the principal designer and I haven't seen any property yet. So no, they are to be designed according to the property where you're proposing to do the installation.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you wish to say anything, Dean? Had any other questions? No. Oh, I've got a message that Gary wants to add something. Sorry, Gary, do you want to come in?
No, I've got a question, so I'll sit in the queue, Ken.
Well, Dean doesn't look like he's coming back on that one, so do you want to jump in then?
Yes. Are you using the DPS?
No.
For your installers?
No.
Okay, so will therefore will the installers then go to whoever it is that's the partner that's running the region?
Yeah, so that's the approach. So we looked at that in the early stages and decided that by procuring delivery organisations, they may be freer to sign up companies to help deliver, not bound by public procurement regulations as we are. So we thought that might make it a much more kind of fluid situation. And certainly in our procurement, we talk about, we looked at their onboarding process for new installers, and we talk about social value in terms of kind of local support.
Right, okay.
That. So that's certainly something we would be looking at, how we kind of support and facilitate those conversations happening with those delivery organisations once they're up and running.
Can I personally applaud that finally someone has had the brain cells to take away all of the paperwork and aggro that is being caused. So very well done. It's really good to hear that you're using the delivery partners to sort this stuff out, and therefore they can work with people and organise stuff, and that's really good to hear. So very well done.
Thanks.
Following on from that, we actually have a question from LMF. If we meet the criteria, how do we apply to be a delivery partner?
So for sorry, just to clarify, is that a delivery partner for our already procured delivery organisations, or is that if we're looking at a potential new procurement for there's lots we're not delivering in so far?
I think it's the latter, but LMF, do you wish to clarify that, please?
Both. Okay. Okay. So where we've chosen preferred supplier for the lots we mentioned, there's a mobilisation period which is kind of scheduled in for start of June, and in those conversations we would discuss with them about their kind of onboarding and how we kind of make those kind of connections, like I just sort of mentioned to Gary, and what's their process for doing that and how they want to do that. So we discuss that with them. What I should say is, we'll probably start this conversation sooner, but that's just the kind of formal time period. For filling the lots that we haven't filled, so if we go down the route of doing a subsequent procurement, who do we email? Yeah, so if we get on lots doing a subsequent procurement, then that will go out through Contracts Finder and ProContract, Supplying the Southwest, all the kind of procurement portals, because it has to be advertised publicly. So if someone wants to let us know they want to talk to delivery partners, I think probably the best thing at the moment is to email us on our Energy Hub email address, which is swenergyhub@westofengland-ca.gov.uk, and we can put that in the chat, that email address, and we'll try and collate those and then discuss with the DOs.
Thank you. LMF, are you wanting to come back, say anything else? See any other clarity? No, just saying thanks. Okay. Then we have the question. Let's see where we are. They've also asked when is it envisaged LAD 2 installs will start in the southwest?
As soon as is feasibly possible. I know that's a really difficult and an annoying answer. It really depends how quickly we can get through that mobilisation period and get to a point where we're ready to start delivering installations. Partly that will be driven by whether any of our installers and or delivery partners have known contacts where they won't be able to, perhaps couldn't deliver under Green Homes Grant or under LAD 1A and 1B. It will partly be down to whether we can supply some social housing projects that can go forward on this, and how quickly all of those things can get decided. If we were starting from absolute zero, there's a marketing approach that needs to be done, and then we need to go through criteria checking and that whole front end piece with customers. So I would say with a very fair wind, maybe in August, but maybe I'm wrong on that. We'll see.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Darren Hutton. Can smart heating controls be installed using LADs?
They can. I think they may be one of the smaller units on this. So they may need to go in with something else. I can't remember the detail of our procurement, sorry, on that particular item, but they are included under the PAS. So of course they can be installed. One of the criteria that BEIS want is that we do actually move the SAP points on a property, so it improves. So, there are particular measures. So for example, a heat pump, if you were to remove an old gas boiler and put a heat pump in, at the moment, you'd still get a worse performance after putting the heat pump in, taking it off of gas. So it might, you know, in those instances, it might be better to install heat pumps where we've got electric heating or something else that's worse performing on an EPC. So yeah, the simple answer is yes, but the detail I'd have to double check, Darren, and I'm happy to do that after this and come back via Kenneth and he can let you know in an update.
That's we'll try and sort that out for you, Darren. Right, next question from Kieran Wells. Is there a criteria for delivery partners to use SMEs, or can they just use national companies?
So as mentioned, we have the social value requirement, and we did talk about in our procurement how they will use local suppliers and on board, and that was something that we marked in the quality kind of criteria. So obviously where they've said they will do that, then we'll be looking to you know, look at how they do that through contract management, through delivery. I guess there's nothing in the contract that says you must only use local suppliers and not national delivery organizations. So, you know, we haven't kind of gone to that level, but we are encouraging as much as possible to use local suppliers. Ultimately, at the same time, though, we do have this issue of we need to get the works done by December, so we have to be practical in that. So we are trying to get that balance between using local suppliers and understanding their capacity and their capability to come on board in that time, alongside that need to get stuff done.
Okay, Kieran.
I'll probably add that our preferred suppliers have all kind of stated their intent to work with local suppliers, and I've been going through processes to try and get that up and running.
So Kieran's responded, it's not allowing companies to grow, it's just boom and bust.
Well, so we recognise that. I mean, Kay and I have been involved in this industry for 10 years, and so we've seen the whole flow of things from kind of Green Deal on all to this. So we kind of recognise all that. We were asked to effectively kind of run this at fairly short notice as part of the Chancellor's economic stimulus back last year, and it was time limited. So we are trying to do a number of measures in that time. What we hope is that we're maybe setting up some kind of structures and process and systems so that if there's a LAD 3 and a hug, that the intention for that, I believe, is that would go to March 2023. So there's a bit more kind of long term in that, and beyond that we don't know, because then you're kind of getting into a new parliament. So yeah, no one can say with any certainty on any of these things, but there is some policy intent that there will be further investment in domestic energy efficiency through LAD 3 and through the home upgrade grant through the parliament. And in the Conservative manifesto there is sort of 9.2 billion set aside for this. This is just effectively the sort of second step of that funding, so we do know more money is coming, and that should hopefully give some encouragement to the market longer term. We just don't know the details of how it's being delivered yet for LAD 3 and hug.
I think I'll add to that and say that we are very aware of the issues this causes in the industry, and look, I rely on the industry as much as the rest of you for an income. So I'm on your side about trying to get a consistent long-term program from the government, and we constantly, the other hubs, my colleagues that I know at local authorities, we're all feeding back the same response to BEIS, which is, please don't give us 18 months to deliver something. It's really difficult, especially when we have to do public procurement as well on top of short timescales. So the message that goes back is very consistent, that we're supporting a long-term program. Unfortunately, you know, we're at the whim of politicians who make the decisions about where money is spent. So we'll do our best whenever we can to, you know, try and get a longer term program in place, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you very much. Kieran's responded saying he agrees consistency is the key for installers. Schemes like Warren Front seem to work well, giving installers these sort of consistencies. So I'm sure that will be taken on board, Kieran. We have a similar question from Kerb about shouldn't carbon reduction programs utilise local installers so we don't have to have installers travelling hundreds of miles to install a measure. This causes issues with aftercare for customers and quality of work due to installers rushing due to travel times, etc. I don't know if, Kerb, you want to add anything to what was said earlier? So I think that's pretty much the same.
I think John pretty much answered my question, to be fair. I mean, to be honest, we've been guilty of ourselves in the past, you know, travelling the other end of the country to go and install a boiler, etc. But we've stopped doing that now. We only work in the local area, so we've only, you know, joined this particular call. And I think it's really one of the issues, some of the issues we've seen in the past is, you know, maybe 6 months down the line, a customer's got a problem with a boiler or whatever it may be. And when you're not local to that area, the aftercare, you know, it's really difficult to provide that aftercare. So yeah, I think just also the local authorities generally have policies in place that say they should be prioritising local installers or local companies, sorry. So just hoping that by this being centralised, we don't lose those local policies that normally exist.
Thank you. John and Kate both nodding their heads there, so that looks like that's been taken on board.
Yeah, I think just to add, I think part of the reason why we procured at the LEP level is because the LEPs are notionally seen as areas of economic activity. So we felt that wouldn't, you know, that would help to kind of facilitate that kind of local dimension rather than just a regional dimension. And also in our procurement, we you know, we tendered it in lots. We prevented any one bidder winning the whole lot because we kind of recognised that you might have a bidder who would win the whole lot based in Bristol, but actually we've got stuff to do in Solent area and for those kind of issues, which is why we've sort of tried to set it up the way we did.
Thank you. I think that kind of answers your question, hopefully, Kerb. And we'll move on. Anne Baradine is asking, will retrofit coordinators and assessors specialise in a building type? That's very difficult when they have no understanding of the type of building that they're working on.
Well, I think that's probably outside of my remit in all honesty, but look, retrofit coordinators should be going through a fairly rigorous training program. It's quite a lot more rigorous than an assessor training program. So I would anticipate that they have a relatively good understanding of the differences between a generally modern construction house and generally traditional construction house. Outside of that, I know there are anomalies like cob houses and system build houses and structural steel houses with other things and timber frame. And so they may not have a full understanding of every single build type, because if you've never worked on one, you may not come across them. But I would say that most of the people that I'm also an assessor of retrofit coordinators, and most of the people that I have come across in my experience of that program is that they have got quite a lot of experience in the building industry, either coming in from a trades background or coming in from a professionals background. So they should have a relatively good understanding. I guess it would be down to the retrofit coordinator to decide whether they want to specialise. I suspect at some stage there will be specialisation in traditional construction housing because of the additional requirements under Pathway C of the PAS. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Kate. Anne, I'm sure you'll want to say something.
Hi, yeah, ours is obviously a specialist industry. And to be able to do the designs and things like that, you have to understand the building. So I don't know
Sorry.
whether it's possible for.
What do you do, Anne? Sorry, I don't know what you do.
We do park homes.
Right, yes.
So they are very tricky buildings and placed in a high risk category. So to have a retrofit assessment, we have to go back and do everything all over again, because the retrofit assessment, they just don't have a clue. The retrofit coordinators, it needs at Trustmark for them to do specialist courses after a general course to be a retrofit assessor or coordinator, to then specialize in an individual building type. I couldn't go and survey a block of flats. I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't set the parameters for either of those, so I can't really comment on how we change that, you know.
No.
It's a good question, I can bring it up. I think assessors are not always very knowledgeable about different building types.
No.
I think retrofit coordinators, if I'm being honest, Anne, maybe invest in training one of your project managers as a retrofit coordinator, and then you've got the skills in-house.
Yeah.
You know, because they know how to do the work at the moment. With that skill, you don't need to go to an external one. You know somebody, and if you've got other people coming up and there's enough work, maybe you can train up more than one. So that would be the initial get out of jail free card.
Yeah. I just worry about all the buildings that are out there with the vulnerability of the people that live in these properties.
Yeah.
That's always my big concern, is the industry as a whole.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we don't do high rise under lads too. I think the maximum we can go up to is 4 stories. So
no, I know.
Because it is also a specialist area, and given everything that's been going on with Grenfell and all the issues in the industry at the moment, that is a really specialist and difficult area right at the moment, and we're not able to go there.
No, I can understand that. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Thank you, Anne. Gary, you want to come in with another question?
Yeah, I just noticed on the chat there, you know, we sort of said half an hour ago, don't use an in-house coordinator. I think in certain circumstances, as Anne rightly said, you know, there are situations like park homes where coordinators basically do bricks and mortar. And park homes, as we know and have had experience for many years, are a completely different kettle of fish. And unless you install park homes, you don't get it. You know, you don't get the problems, you don't get what you're asked to be done, underfloor and the roof. I've learned so much talking to Anne and other park home installers about the difficulties. And unfortunately, people who make the rules just, sorry, 1 and 1 doesn't equal 3, but they seem to think it does. And there are big problems with this that hopefully we'll have some news on soon, but Ken's dealing with that side of it. And I totally agree. Yes, you wouldn't normally use an in-house coordinator. Certainly on the Green Homes Grant Scheme, if you're using an in-house coordinator, you will be monitored and you will have more site visits, you will have more auditing, because, as I said earlier, self-interest is a great motivator, and therefore it needs an eye on it, because unfortunately not everybody is as clean and honest as a lot of people on this call, and therefore they will pay to get stuff through. Sorry, but that's the bottom line. People will bend the rules, and that's why in-house coordinators are not really liked. You know, let's be honest about this. It's pretty. Got to look after the customer. Bottom line, got to look after that end person. Make sure that end person's done right. I don't agree with all of the ideas, but I'll park the bus because I'll be talking later. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. There's a similar question coming from Simon at Key Systems. Are retrofit coordinators mandatory if the contractor is working within the Southwest LAD scheme?
Yes.
Yeah, it's always good to get clarity on that as succinctly as that. Simon, were you wanting to say anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks, Kate.
Right.
That we're pretty much through the questions.
I think there's one, Kenneth, from LMF about whether you can be an installer and a delivery organisation. That I noticed.
I'm just about to ask that one. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, I wonder if you've seen it. So yes is the answer. In our last procurement, we're looking at companies that could do the end-to-end process. If we move forward with that same approach, if we do subsequent procurement, there's nothing to stop that, as long as you can meet all the criteria and you can demonstrate that you can kind of do that end-to-end process. In our last procurement, we sort of said that a delivery organisation might have in-house teams that they use for certain measures, and then they might also use external suppliers. So that was fine, and I didn't see that we would change that necessarily in the next one. Obviously, that's subject to the feedback we get from our soft market testing that we're going to launch hopefully soon.
Thank you very much. I don't know if LMF want to say anything more, or if anyone else has any other questions that they wish to put through. Otherwise, I will. We have one question from Martin. Just to be clear, if we want to work with the procured delivery partner, do we need our own coordinator?
I think the simple answer to that is it would be a conversation with the delivery partner, and I suspect, based on the information that I've read, that most of the delivery partners will have internal retrofit coordinators and will have a relationship with some consultants that work independently. So no, you won't.
Thank you. Martin, do you wish to come back?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you very much. That's helpful.
Perfect. Thank you, Martin. LMF asking, and I keep seeing this one coming up. I'm not ignoring it. It is so they're saying, where will the announcements of who are the delivery partners being so where will the announcement of who the delivery partners are will be published, and is IWI interim flowchart ignored for Green Home Grant voucher system and LAD 1 and 2? Sorry, 1 and 1B, 1A and B.
So the announcements will be discussed with the delivery partners and agreed an approach to do that. Most likely, from our side, it will be on our website, swenergyhub.org.uk. But the kind of publicity will be, we'd agree a plan for that with them once we had those discussions. I'll leave the second part to you, Kate.
We'll probably do something on LinkedIn as well once those have gone on live. So if you follow us there, you'd find it. I don't know the answer because I'm not involved with LADS 1A or 1B. So sorry, I'm going to step back from answering that question.
Okay, thank you. I did think that might be the answer. We'll try and get you an answer to that workflow question. I don't think we've got one yet. I will also say that the delivery partners, we are compiling a list of all the delivery partners. Once we know them all, we will be placing that onto our website, so it will be there, and it will be available for all our members, and we'll probably put it in a newsletter as well at some point once all the delivery partners are announced, so that everyone has sufficient detail and means to access them. Those that are delivery partners that are in our membership, if anyone wishes to communicate with them and is having difficulty getting hold of them, they should talk to us. So far for the other regions, I can't obviously speak for the Southwest yet, but for the other regions where the delivery partners have been announced, the Energy Efficiency Association has 90% of them in our membership, so we can help. Then we have a question from Mark Dillon. Can we please circulate the slides that we're showing? So I'm just going to ask Kate, is it possible for us to get a copy that we can of the slides pack that we
Yeah,
can
probably. I don't think there's anything sensitive in there.
Thank you very much, and we'll send that out in the coming days. And I think we're pretty much there through all the questions. And I know Gary has one question to do, but then I'm going to ask him to sum up. So
yeah.
I'll let Gary ask the last question then.
It's ever such a quick one, and it may be that I've missed something completely. There were 4 areas that you've got delivery partners for.
3.
3 areas you got delivery partners for. How many areas are there altogether?
7.
Right, okay. Was there 3 areas that you didn't have, or was there 4? I know that might be silly maths, but did I miss something?
There's 3 areas we've got preferred bidders, and there's 4 areas where we haven't.
Right, okay. Because when I looked on the map, I thought there was 8 regions on there. Maybe I missed something. Okay. No, that's all. Memory's not as good as it used to be.
Right, you'll get the slides.
Yeah. If you could pop the slides across to me, because I do get many people actually asking me for slides.
Yeah, no problem. So just to confirm, so we're a partnership with 7 LEP areas. So those lots reflected the LEPs that are to the local interest partnerships that are our partners. So Cornwall and Isles of Scilly, for example, Heart of South West, Dorset, Solent, Swindon and Wiltshire, West of England and Gloucestershire.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, do you want me to sum up now, Ken?
I will leave it to you to sum up. Yes.
Thank you very much. Well, we've only got 1 more of these to go, so that'd be great. And I believe, Danny, you're on next week again. Yep. And that is the Yorkshire and the North East one. So if any of you are not booked in that would like to be, please give us a shout. I'd like to thank everybody for coming on the call. Again, loads of differences, which would be really good. But I think what I'd like to do, if possible, if there's anybody that would like to get involved with the Southwest LAD scheme from the installer point of view, suppliers, whatever, if you email me, I'm quite happy to assist. Because obviously once we know, as Ken said, who all of the delivery partners are, we looked at the other areas and we pretty much know most of them. You know, we're more than happy to direct you and help you in any way we can. So, you know, either drop me an email or give me a bell if you want to take part in everything. And then, you know, we'll see where we go with that. I've enjoyed today because one of the differences is a little less paperwork for the installers by the sound of things. Now, whether that actually does work out in the end that there is less paperwork, I'm a great believer in letting the installers do what they do best. And that's go and do the work on people's houses rather than spend all day in the flaming office. The good news, obviously, about PAS 2030, 2017, sorry, beg your pardon, going to the end of October, I think is really useful. Again, if anybody needs any clarification on that, and more importantly on the Green Homes Voucher Scheme, if anybody has vouchers that they haven't been paid for that have been installed, please let me know, email me. I think I'm about $750,000 that I've helped get paid so far. So, you know, let's get to 1 million. I'm not happy. Kickstart scheme. Now, Department of Works and Pensions are lovely people. However, they do take their time. And although we've been successful at placing, I think it's somewhere between 20 and 25 people so far already. We're now up to 300 that we're trying to place. Again, 18 to 24-year-olds predominantly, 25 hours a week for 6 months for free. I can talk you through everything. It is a very good scheme. We are finding some areas are much more difficult to find people, and that's for definite. But please be patient, because we will hopefully get there. PAS 2035, 3rd of June, we're doing a Zoom call. Are you ready for PAS 2035? We got a reasonable lineup, but of course, a lot of people aren't. If you want to come on the call, let me know. Finally, Southwest Awards, July the 16th, Taunton Holiday Inn. If you are in the Southwest and you want to obviously support your local event, that would be really good, because obviously, no disrespect, I've had my lot sitting on furlough for 14 months. They ain't got a clue what they're doing when they come back. And half the people we're talking to are no longer working at the companies that they were doing. So any support you can give the awards, although that's completely separate to the association, would be most gratefully accepted. It's a tough enough year for everybody as it is, but it might be an idea that we all get together. And if we can get 120 at each of the events, we'll bung a DJ on. How about that? Just Friday night, DJ, all get together. What more do you want? I'd love to thank John and Danny and Kate, of course, but I think she's gone. But no, thank you very much. It's been very informative. And no doubt we'll work together and see what we can do. I'm hoping as well for everybody that we can actually try and elongate for the work for everybody, because as you're right, it's like going at Blackpool roller coaster is, the ups and downs that we have. And sooner or later, you know, there's going to be a down and you ain't going to be able to come back up again. And you know, eventually if you go up and down like that, there's only one thing that happens, and you flatline. And when you flatline, there's no coming back from that. And we've got to stop that happening. You know, if anybody's seen the film Flatliners, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, our industry is being pulled up and down and up and down. Yeah, and everything's been changed at the last minute. We have to have consistency. Now, I'm hoping that, you know, through the association, through the energy hubs and through BEIS, we can actually all work together to actually push this forward and try and get some understanding that we need consistency. We can't all go and spend thousands and thousands of pounds all getting geared up to drive a flaming Ferrari when some blokes took all the wheels off and took all the petrol out. Oh, by the way, you're not allowed to have petrol in your motor from 2025. Maybe we just got to look at what we can use instead. So if we're going to rev it all up and we're going to go all electric vehicle, then what we need to do is we need to rev our industry up and make sure someone's not going to walk behind us and pull a flaming plug out. So we will try and work together. I'm sure Ken and I will work with members of the association. We will try and talk to BEIS. I think the scenario is simple. We come up with the scheme. We come up with the plan. We just ask them for the money. Watch this space. I'd like to thank you all very much for coming on the call. To hear me rabbiting on at the end, thanks for those that have stuck with the call until the very end. we are here for you, you know, and obviously, hopefully we'll see you on the call next week, or if not the PAS one, but I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. That's me done. I think I've said enough. But, you know, thanks very much for your support again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I just want to say thanks again to John and Kate, and also to you, Danny. We shall hopefully see you on the next call, or on the 3rd of June. Just a reminder, in case anyone's missed it that's interested, BEIS published the new stats for the Green Home Grant voucher this morning. They're now on the BEIS website. And there will be a Energy Efficiency Association newsletter going out in the next 24 hours. So if anyone has any problems getting that or wants to be on the list, let us know. So we shall speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Have a good day.